This is a test of the Boundary Park alert system. Hello, welcome to the Boundary Park alert system with me, Matt Dean, currently enjoying a nice crisp Scottish cider on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. I'm joined with the man from Del Monte, is it? Or is it you, Andy? You've got the same hat. Yeah. Similar, isn't it? Similar vibe.
I've been out in the garden. It's a bit wham for my, my deep Mediterranean skin tone. So,
yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? What a day.
Yeah.
The sun always shines on Oldham, metaphorically, if not figuratively.
Yeah.
But you're in London.
Yeah.
Where's our guest? I know that he's been in France recently because I've seen his social media posts. I know he's got a pub in his back garden because I've seen his social media posts. I know more about him actually when I think about it. I know quite a lot about him because I've never met the guy. But yeah, the landlord of the Hooped Owl, no doubt, is with us. Everybody knows him as Macca, but I can see here his full name is Anthony McNamara. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you very much. And actually, Matt, we have met. So I obviously didn't make
No, we have met. We met when on the clear. No, we met on the clear out as well under the when they were clearing out the fans bar.
Yes.
We met there, but we didn't. I mean, we met, but we didn't. We didn't sit down and discuss our life stories or anything, did we? Or anything like that. But yeah, it's funny when you think about it. When you realise actually, because of like social media, you do know things like about people and more than you realise. I mean, obviously, it depends on what you share and that. But actually, Andy, that links quite nicely to what you were going to do next, which was to find out a little bit more about Macca's Latics memories and whatnot.
Well, we haven't been doing the fan intros, have we? I think because we've had some repeat guests on and we were just getting stuck into the content. But let's take this slightly slower. So we've already given his name away. But when was your first game, Macca?
Do you know what? I actually don't remember my first game because my mum and dad weren't particularly football people. So my uncles, when they realised I was getting into football, used to take me to games, but they were Blackburn fans. So they used to take me and a couple of my cousins to Blackburn Oldham games. But we were too busy running up and down the terraces and not paying attention. So I know it will have been a Blackburn, it will have been against Rovers, but I can't remember the game.
Roughly what year? What sort of era?
That will have been 90, maybe 91, 92, probably 92-ish. I mean, the first game that really sticks out in my memory is against Barnsley in the FA Cup. Was it fourth round when Andy Ritchie pile-drived it into the roof of the net from a John Hallworth kick-out?
Fifth round, yeah.
Fifth round, was it? Yeah. That's one that sticks out as a very...
What's your favourite Latics-related memory?
I mean, seeing a Brendan Rodgers Liverpool team comprising Raheem Sterling, Luis Suarez, Steven Gerrard walk away from Boundary Park with slap bottoms was truly...
Yeah, that comes quite a lot for people, that one. It's a favourite for people. Who's your first favourite player?
Gunnar Haller. I think he's still mad. No one's ever replaced him.
As well. And then the final one is, tell us a little unknown fact about yourself.
Fact.
This is why it's always good to prepare these questions.
I spent 4 years working as a deep sea diver. I don't know if that...
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Never worked offshore. It was all inshore stuff. But yeah, did that for 4 years.
Nice.
I was sure that there was a really, really great pun that I was going to drop, but it never came to me then. But yeah, fantastic. Well, that I like that we've done that because it's kind of delayed the inevitable and the thing that I was dreading all day, which was talking about the football. It was your favourite recent memory was probably never going to be that recent. Your favourite memory was never going to be that recent. So let's get stuck into it. We had the pleasure of being able to watch all the multiple angles of yesterday's game and see it in all its glory. Sometimes we get to watch it from just a very, very dodgy one camera perspective, but we got to see it from all angles yesterday. Andy, you and I messaged each other briefly, sort of like, or it was in one of the groups or something, saying that actually on balance, we didn't think that it was such a bad performance. Let's get Macca's view of, did you watch the game on TV yesterday?
I did. I was in the hotel watching it with two of my Blackburn Rovers supporting friends. Quite interesting, really, because to watch an Oldham game in the company of somebody, of people who don't watch us all the time. Because I think we've become so inured to how bad we are that I was watching the game and I was thinking, this is better. That really was the feeling I was getting. And then I started asking the lads what they thought. And I got, I got that perspective from supporters who are not watching our games through Oldham Athletic eyes, and I actually wrote down some of the things they said. I'd rather watch a B-movie horror than this shite. Seen better games down on Witten Park, and of the pundits, why is there 4 of them to analyse the shite we've just watched?
I mean, I don't listen to anyone from Bastard Rovers anyway. The best of times.
Hey, listen, this is a bunch of supporters that are able to enjoy going to Harrogate in the EFL Cup and win 8-0. So they're on cloud 9 or 8 at the minute. So it's there is a certain amount of have to accept where we are. We're in the 5th division. So, like, out of all 5 divisions, that you'd expect the games to be the worst in this one. And you'd expect the quality of the football to be the poorest out of any of it. You do get the odd good game on TV from at this level. But on the whole, it is pretty turgid, isn't it? I mean, it's not. You wouldn't expect it to be fantastic. Notts County were the exception to the rule. I think they were a brilliant footballing side in this division. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I thought as a spectacle yesterday, because it was a 2-2 draw and the way that it went, there was a level of excitement about it. It was very, very nervy. I was very, very nervous. I was very compelled and drawn in because I'm an Oldham fan and I really, really wanted us to win the game, and I was hoping that we'd win it with a bit of luck. And when both of those goals went in, you thought this has to be our day today because. Well, massive slices of luck if we win the game like that, and then just an absolute collective brain fart in the defence. Just we conceded a second soft goal. So really, I think that game was a story of 4 soft goals. Really, wasn't it? It was entertaining insofar as it went one way and another, but yeah, it certainly wasn't a spectacle. Anyway, I mean, we can talk about the game. We can analyse like mistakes. We can analyse good pieces of play. We can analyse formation. We can say that Unsworth had a goal yesterday. There was the high press. It was the 3 forwards with Shelton in behind them, so that we're pressing with 4. Gardner and Sheeran in behind them. It was relatively effective insofar as it stopped them playing some of the time, but not all of the time. Mackie, you're in the Unsworth out camp now, I think, firmly entrenched, are you? I think you've made, made your mind up.
I don't think there's ever been an issue I've flip-flopped on more than Unsworth. And to be honest, at the start of the season, I was fully Unsworth in because, we'd signed some quality players. It was helped that it was my 40th birthday and I got a recorded message from him. Really nice, it's like a minute long. He really put some effort into it. And he seemed upbeat and positive, and I thought, let's have it. But I also went down to Southend and just talk about your dreams getting shat on right from the start. And and that was it. And then we had the Altrincham game, and that was obviously really good. But I said at the time the Altrincham game was good.
Aldershot.
Sorry, Aldershot. The Aldershot game was good, but quite often teams that have got a lot of quality in the sides, if they get battered, they usually take it out on somebody the next week, which we did. Which is why I said, for me, the Halifax game is more important because if we do the same to Halifax that we did to Aldershot, then a trend is developing, and we all know how that ended and has gone on up to and including yesterday, our only win of the season. It's not good enough. It really
you can't. There's not nobody is going to say that after 7 games in the National League, 1 win is good enough for a club of our size, with the investment that's gone into it and the preparation that's been afforded the owner, with all of the head coach, with all of the accoutrements and investment in infrastructure that he's had. He should be performing better than that, without any doubt. But that yesterday, as an isolated performance yesterday, it was good to see us a player. When I saw the team sheet, my heart sunk at first because I thought it was 4-5-1. It looked 4-5-1 to me, and I was thinking, "Oh, for crying out loud, please don't sit." But I was expecting Chesterfield again. I was like, "Oh, please, no, not against Gateshead. This is going to turn." And actually, I was sort of pleasantly surprised to see both Dickinson and Green playing high up the pitch in a quite clear 4-3-3, and we pressed high, and that sort of, I was buoyed from that. And then obviously we conceded a few sort of chances. They could have easily scored, really, before we got one. But we were in the game, and so there's a distinct improvement.
I know, but
and they could easily have won yesterday. They could easily have won. They weren't brilliant. They weren't bad either. They were all right. But I guess if I'm just looking at that game in isolation, I'm saying to myself, well, they're not full of confidence because of the start we've had. They have not seen that game out when possibly they could have done. And over the course of more games, maybe with some players returning from injury, we might start to see us, pick 3 points up from those games. I'm not convinced either, Macca, by David Unsworth. I'm not convinced by him at all. He's had the Southend thing that you touched upon, and I'm still in shock now, weeks later.
I am. I've not got over it.
I haven't got over it either because I was so excited to see us just have a go. Even it wouldn't have mattered if we not won. Just had a go would have been enough, because you'd have felt like we were starting a new season with a different attitude. And because we didn't, he referred to it yesterday on his interview where he said he was ill, and he said it a couple of times. So he wasn't there. So he's kind of absolving himself of responsibility from it a little bit.
Which that's bollocks anyway. He still had a pre-season to set them up.
Correct.
They know how they're going into that game. Well, fair enough. He's not there barking on the sidelines, but they turned up to Roots Hall. They should have been well drilled, knowing what the job was.
Yeah, he doesn't bark from the sidelines anyway. He's quite a passive manager on the touchline, so it kind of didn't. I agree with you. We also knew who we were playing weeks in advance of it, so he'd had plenty of time to get prepared, set up, and coach. So I'm not buying the sort of him being away for a week. The one thing I do think is, if you sort of take us back to the middle of the summer, after we'd signed Kurt Willoughby and Lundstrom and Raglan and those sorts of players, I thought I could see him setting up like he did yesterday. That appeared to be how I thought he was going to go, 4-3-3. And the forward three, I maybe naively expected to be Willoughby, Nuttall, Reid. That's what I was expecting, like all-out attack, 3 proper strikers that might have to drop back into a defensive shape when we've not got the ball, but still, 3 strikers, we're going to absolutely go for it. Because I couldn't see that Kurt Willoughby scoring 20-odd goals wasn't going to be a first choice, first name on the sheet, one of them, right? And then Norwood comes along. And I do wonder how much that's completely upset and changed the way that he's gone, because then he's gone with 2 strikers, and then yesterday he's gone with a 4-3-3, but actually he's going with wide midfielders in a forward position as opposed to strikers. And I just wonder, like, almost how it's just upset the way that we were going to go, and then we've got a bit muddled, and we got off to a bad start now, and then there's nerves about it. And I don't, Dave Bradley said in our prediction episode that he thought we'd start badly and get going later, and he might be right. I thought we'd start off much better than this, but so it's difficult. It's difficult to know if we're set and that's it, and this is how bad we're going to be all in, or if we're going to see a distinct improvement and then make a late push for the playoffs and see where we go from there. But we cannot. We're too good. The players are too good in the squad to be languishing down where we are for long, you'd hope.
They really are. And one thing that the big takeaway for me yesterday was Hobson. How has he not been playing right from the first game? The guy, for some reason, I've got it into my head that he was quite a diminutive little guy, but he's an absolute unit, and he just looks so comfortable He just totally marshalled that back line.
Well, he had an excellent game, and I think Hobson has probably been the one that Hogan has probably been the one that's looked a bit more suspect. However, he's the captain, and managers are very reluctant to drop their captains, and he's taken up that kind of like leadership position. He's been on Unsworth's arm at things like the fans forum and whatnot, and he takes responsibility. And I'm sure he's an excellent professional. I'm sure he does everything in training that he's supposed to do, and he's a great character and all that kind of stuff. There was obviously the goal against Solihull they cut through us too easily last week, and I think he actually singled out Raglan for that. So I think he's dropped him for that. But he's. I agree with both of what you're saying. I think there are definitely. I don't think he's found his system yet and his right formation. He's going to need to get a move on and get that settled and get that right, because he needs wins. He desperately needs wins. And what I would also say is that the players need to take some responsibility, because everyone's going on about how good the players are. Well, it's kind of up to the players on the pitch to prove how good they are during the game, and that means having a good first touch, finding the right pass, winning your individual battles, and all that kind of stuff. It's not all on the manager. That second goal yesterday that Gateshead scored, in fact, both the goals that Gateshead scored yesterday, there was a win there, an easy win there, or relatively easy win there, based on the fact that their goalkeeper had two massive brain farts and let the goals in. Like, if we just stay tight and organise yesterday and press when we need to press, when
I think that does come from the manager, though. I mean, because I really wanted to be taking positives from yesterday, and there were positives. Like Hobson, I think Devon Green is an outstanding player at this level. I really like Brennan Dickinson. But what I realised was the positives I was taking was the performances of individual players. But as a kind of, as a unit, every performance still looks so laboured. It's like,
how can you
don't get we never seem to get crosses into the box either. Like, and that is where we're going to end up really wasting the potential of Norwood, because he is in a lot of respects, he's an old-fashioned striker, right? He's not the most skillful, but any ball that comes into the box, he'll go bare knuckle for and do what he can to get it in. But those crosses just aren't coming in.
Right, so if we're playing players like Kitchen out on the left, and one of his main jobs is to got to get the ball to him, he wants to get the ball in the box. We've seen during games this season that is one of our main outlets, and he puts in a good ball. Green yesterday got into some good positions. Probably balls were played too far ahead of him, so he couldn't quite get the ball into the box and things like that. And that was an obvious outlet. Is that the manager's fault if the players aren't delivering? What I get annoyed about is with some of the comments about me and some of the stuff we're talking about. Andy, that first game against Southend, we absolutely slated the team, didn't we?
Yeah.
And the setup and everything. And we slated it from day one. Right now, it's very easy for us to sit. I noticed this in what people do. So people, like you were saying, Mac, are there, like where you're trying to find positives. If all you want to do is find negatives, you'll have a field day. There's loads of them.
Yeah.
It's dead easy. And if you want to just focus on the negatives all the way through, then that's it. On this podcast, it's not. We don't want to do that. So we don't want to focus on all the negatives or all the positives. We want to try and focus on like what we think is actually, in the balance. And you spoke about that Halifax game earlier. I think we had a go, and I think they were very well organised, and I think that they were fairly lucky. A draw probably would have been the right result. Now, we can't draw all our games and get promoted, we know that, but Halifax are doing pretty well. And you've got to give them.
How many times have we said that about teams that we played? They were really well organised.
Sometimes that's just the case, and when we're not up to speed. Well, we're not up to speed. Clearly, we are not as we should be breaking those teams down. If we've got any aspirations getting promoted, we're going to have to learn how to break them down. So I get that, and we're not been good enough. One win in 7 games. Clearly, if you want to take the positives or the negatives, there is one positive and 6 negatives, or arguably not quite 6, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough. But I don't think it's as disastrous, and I do think there are fine margins involved in a lot of these games. And that's why I'm not panicking to the degree that other people are either panicking or hammering home this message about David Unsworth because they don't like him. And that is also another thing. I think this is a personality thing with a lot of people. So it's a very, very difficult situation that the club is in, that the manager's in, that Frank's in. And as a fan base, I think it's. Can
Can I tell you why I'm panicking a little bit? Because when I look at some of the managers I really admire in this division, like Mark Williamson, Gateshead's manager, he is a guy who, he had his playing career, retired, and just dived straight into the management game at a competitive level. Phil Parkinson is another one who had quite an interesting backstory. He hardly played professionally. He played a couple of games for Port Vale or something, and then went into education and was leading management courses for the police and developing quite interesting skill sets that have obviously translated, because he's keeping Altrincham a pretty competitive National League side, whereas Unsworth retired and then just basically vegetated for nearly a decade in Everton's under-23s in an environment where it doesn't matter whether you win, lose or draw. No one cares. Everton's board don't give a shit if the under-23s win or lose on a Saturday. What they care about is, are there enough lads coming through to the first team who can play in the first team, and or we can sell on for a profit to justify the expenditure of the under-23s, and hopefully more so. And he's for 8 years being in a role where it doesn't matter whether you and I think you see it in his interviews. The amount of times, like it's like after that Solihull game, I almost wanted to see a man on the edge, seething about what had just happened. And it was like he was just like, well, we're getting there. It's going to take time. We're getting there. And like with this discipline thing, after the game, the interviewer said to him, you've got a bit of a discipline problem, haven't you? And he laughed, and then said, "Oh, there's other teams who've got worse disciplinary records than us. There aren't. We're number one on that table." And it just reeks of somebody who's spent too much time in an environment where there isn't that pressure to be producing results. I mean, how is that going to change? How is the psychology of that going to suddenly change?
So I'm not going to disagree with anything for the sake. Everything you've reasoned there and argued is very well constructed, very well observed. You couldn't say I'm not taking issue with any of it. But if I just attempt to counter like three of those points, if I can remember them now. He's vegetated for 10 years in Everton's youth setup and therefore not being put under pressure. And then I think one of the markers you said was the only thing he's judged on is has he brought players through? Well, didn't he bring through players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Anthony Gordon, or like there's like weren't there like half a dozen players that he's brought through that have either played significant number of first team games for Everton or have been sold on for money? So in theory, therefore, he has his objectives, which maybe not as cutthroat and difficult as managing a first team at any level. He sort of, maybe you could argue he's ticked. I'm no Everton historian, so I don't know exactly what he's done there. But in terms of like, he may well have been achieving the tick boxes that he required at that level. I think he's very, very heavily qualified coach, and also was training coaches to coach as well, I think. And Ebrel also he's like got all the badges there, badged up to the eyeballs. So it's like they've spent their time wisely studying, in theory. Then you've got what are the other points you just made? I knew I'd forget them. This is middle age setting in. I mean,
well, that was just broadly the point, and I don't doubt. I mean, he to hold down the job for 8 years and to be bringing in that quality, he probably is a good coach. But that's where I do think there is a dividing line between a coach and a manager. So you can get lads on the pitch and you can develop them, but have you got that strategic,
I remember. So the other point you're making was you wanted to see him on the edge after the Solihull game, and he comes out and sort of plays it down, and he's like really relaxed and cool. Like I would absolutely agree with you that there are times when he says things in interviews, and we could probably pull them all apart ourselves. Like there are teams with worse disciplinary records than ours. You're like, oh, David, please don't say that. That's daft. We all know that's wrong. Like when he does that, you put your head. I put my head in my hands and think, help it. But the playing it down thing is, he knows that he's under the pump. He's getting heat, and he doesn't necessarily want that heat to transfer to the players as much as he can. So he's maybe protecting them a little bit from like, no, it's fine. We'll come good. Don't worry about it. Like there are things that when you're trying to do things psychologically, you're either trying to put heat on somebody to try and make them react, or you're trying to take the heat off them as a collective. And you know, I agree
but I
with you
would
on
counter that by then saying, if he's trying to take the heat off them, it's not working then, is it?
Well, let's try and have a look at this from the point of view of the board, right, of the football club. We've come in and taken a dysfunctional football club that was dysfunctional 12 months ago, right? So there's been a lot of work.
There's loads of people listening now, Matt, booing, right?
Yeah, I don't give a shit about that. I don't give a shit about it. But the point is that when they brought when they took that on, they had to bring in people to rebuild the football club. Now that football club isn't rebuilt. Okay, let's first of all put it there because it's only 12 months ago. So they're still in the process of rebuilding the football club. I don't care what anybody says. That's a fact, right? So what they've done, like you said, Micah, they've brought in a manager who has you say what was the phrase that you used, like languishing in the vegetating, right? The way that May might look at it is someone with a vast wealth of bringing through young players, which is fundamental to the future business model of the football club, right? They need to bring through young players, sell them on as assets, right? So he is well qualified in that respect to do that. So that's part of the future plan. So they could have brought in somebody from a different background. You've mentioned a couple of managers there, people who were untried and untested, but who were smart guys going into clubs with very, very low expectations upon them, such as Gateshead, Altrincham and things like that. David Unsworth has really sort of like jumped in at the deep end here. He's coming to a football club where the expectation is absolutely ginormous based on 30 years history from 30 years ago, as opposed to like immediate history and the size of the fan base. With Frank coming back in, the crowds have gone up. And if the crowds had only jumped up to 3,000-4,000 from the 1,500 or 2,000 that were going under Abdallah, things might have been a little bit different. But what's happened is we're not a sleeping giant by any stretch of the imagination, but this club has been woken up and the fan base has been woken up, and we now have bigger attendances than we had in Division 2 before we even went on those brilliant runs. So everything's kind of been shaking up at once, and he's the man who's got to take us through that. I think it's a very, very difficult job for him, and it's a very, very difficult job for the board to get it right first time. And we have all acknowledged that he's made mistakes, whether it's in the things that he's done, the things that he said, whatever. But I mean, we've had our chairman. We've gone from having chairman and board members that are too scared to show up to a game to having one who is prepared to go and stand by his man in the crowd at the away end. And it's like there's an element of our fan base who want it all now, right? Who want it all now. And they will not accept anything less. I want us to have started the season a damn sight better than we have. I want David Unsworth to start showing us what he's capable of. I want the players to start showing us what they're capable of. We all want it. But I think that a lot of what is being said and done is adding to the not just the expectation, but the nerves and the anxiety and the frustration. All that we keep saying this week after week, well, year after year on the pod, that we're all connected in this football club. Everything we do has a knock-on effect to everybody else. All we've tried to ask for on this podcast is a bit of patience. Now, you were on the David Unsworth at the beginning of the season, and we played 7 games, and it's going badly in terms of results. And no one can argue with that. Is it off the rails? Are we completely out of contention for the playoffs? I don't think we are. But like even that, are we out of contention for the playoffs? I mean, a lot of people said they'd given the first 10 games. So for me, and then retracted it after 2 or 3. Well, yeah, but even those that have stuck to it, with 7 games in, as far as I'm concerned, for them to be thinking, oh, maybe there is something to David Unsworth, we absolutely have to win these next 3 games. We've got to win them. And, we don't want that. Of course, yeah, he needs to start getting points. What from the point of view, it's dead easy to just sack him, boo. Like, use a couple of syllables, you know what I mean? It's like it's easy to use a couple of syllables over and over again, and expect then something to change and expect a long-term strategy and a long-term plan that's been implemented by the board to rebuild this football club, which is what's happened. They are not going to make that decision lightly. They're not going to just sack him, and then they're going to have to find the right. But now, for all we know, they're looking at options for bringing in another manager. We don't know that, do we? And they're not going to tell us. We don't know. But what they're trying to put in place is a long-term strategy and a long-term plan to rebuild this football club. And there is absolutely no guarantee that that is going to start with promotion this season. Now, we have to accept that we all want promotion this season and we all expect to push for promotion this season. And I still think that that is very much on the cards based with the quality of players that we've got in our squad. It's definitely not over yet.
It's not.
Has he got a lot to prove? Yes.
Contentions on the title are over.
Well, I don't think anyone of us ever expected us to win the league anyway, did we?
Correct. I don't. This is where expectations for people maybe pitched at a different. I never expected us to be challenging for the top position anyway. I think. Well, I expected us to be in the playoffs. Definitely expecting it to be in the playoffs. I expected us to be in the playoffs now. I expect us to be in the top 7 now, not in a few weeks' time or a few months' time if we can catch up and get in there. I'm talking about now. So it's disappointing, but I never thought that we would win it. We were going to be too far off winning it. I mean, the other way of looking at it is, so if you saw Frank in the stand yesterday addressing supporters,
I saw some of the videos.
Yeah, I think it's great. He's got a set of balls and he's going in there and he's just taking it head on and he's not afraid to go and talk to people and listen to their point of view from what I can tell. But they're sticking by their man for now at least, because that appears to be what his message was yesterday. And whether you'd see that as a vote of confidence, I don't think it is, because it was a bit more. It wasn't a formal communication, but they're sticking behind him for now, and that's because they're seeing this as a long-term project. So they've obviously got sort of goals that they want to achieve over the course of time that they're not laying out for everyone to hear, and nor should they necessarily. And we just need to get behind it. So it's pointless going toxic. He's told you on the terrace that that Unsworth's his man, and they're going to stick by him. And then we're just going to see how it goes. Now, if we don't have what a lot of people are saying is we're going to squander this amazing opportunity that we've got now to get on a roll, because we've got all these fans that have come back. They're spending money at the club. If apathy and disinterest sets in again like it did under the Three Amigos, Carney, Abdallah era, then we lose the impetus. And we miss out on the opportunity to capitalise on what is a great opportunity now. Now, I hear all that, and that's well reasoned. If the board think that that's going to materially affect what they can spend in the future, then they'll probably will act, I would have thought. But even then, they've probably got contingencies themselves. I mean, what we've been lucky this season is all we're ever talking about is the football or David Unsworth. We're not talking about anything else, like people getting paid late or problems with court cases or anything like that. All that's gone, it's disappeared. But if you recall, we did outline that there was £5.1 million worth of credit available to the club. Now, they're not going to want to spend that all in one season just gambling on promotion. That money is probably 2-3 years, contingency fund set ahead. It's preparing for us for if we don't go up this season. These people have run successful multi-million-pound businesses. They'll have a contingency for 3 or 4 different outcomes, because that's what good business practice is. So they'll want us to go up, of course they do. But if we don't go up, they'll have a contingency for if we don't. So they're going to back their man no matter what. And we're probably going to see, unless it gets really, really turgid and terrible, we're probably going to see him see out his 3-year contract. But I mean, if he doesn't improve on what he's doing now materially, then he isn't going to get a new contract at the end of that one, is he? And presumably the severance payments in that 3-year period reduce over the course of time. So there'll come a point at which severing that contract will be relatively cheap. But I imagine now, only 1 year into 3 years, it's quite a lumpy sum. There's a budget set for the season they've committed to. That would be going over and beyond that. So they're not panicking. And they're making a cool-headed decision. And that's kind of what I want. I want cool heads.
That's exactly it, Andy. That's exactly it. That's why, your 2 syllables, your boos and your sackims, it's easy to do that. But ultimately, the people that are under the pressure to deliver have to have a much cooler head and actually, have to have a bit of resolve. And it's far more difficult for them to stand by their man and stand by their guns. And I would like us to back those people making those decisions and just have a bit of faith and a bit of confidence in them. And like I said on the phone on Wednesday, I would like managers to leave our football club saying, you know what, the fans were magnificent. It didn't work out for me there, but they were with me all the time. Not, oh, well, they made their mind up about me dead early and then gave me a load of shit until I got sacked, which is ultimately where we are right now. And I think we're talking about drawing a new line under the stuff at Latics, and we've drawn a new line under the ownership issues, and we're trying to draw a line under all the defeats and the crap performances and the facilities and the this and that. I would like to draw a line under some of the things that we do as fans and some of the way that we behave as fans, and that's why I've been sort of trying to call it out a little bit, because I don't think it helps, and I also don't think the argument, well, I'm a fan and I pay my money and I can say what I want and do what I want. You can, yeah, but you have to be prepared to be challenged on it as well. If other fans think that what you're doing is toxic or negative to, and then you get called a happy clapper, or the new one now is, you one of the, the new realistic lot and all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, I've I've muted a lot of Twitter accounts now, because ultimately I don't care what they say. So it just helps me not having to read their bio all the time. But like, people, we're all accountable. The board are accountable, the manager's accountable, the players are accountable, and the fans are accountable. If you're going to say we're a great club, that's what that means. All of those people, all the staff, all the fans, everybody is all accountable. And 7 games into this season, I think some of our fans have made the situation more difficult for David Unsworth, and are making the situation more difficult for David Unsworth. David Unsworth is accountable for his own actions and his own performance as well, but I'm just saying that I think that it doesn't help. So that's why I'd like to see people back off a little bit and just, even if they don't have to be singing his name, but just back off a little bit. Maka, I know you want to say something in response to that, mate.
Well, no, I mean, because I appreciate what you're saying, but I think you've got that issue there of talking about crowds and talking about individuals. So if you I found myself in the Unsworth out camp, but if you say to me, everything that you've said there to me, I can listen to it and I can say, well, do you know? I mean, going off the videos from in the away end yesterday and what Frank was saying, he ain't going anywhere. Certainly not before Christmas, and unless results are just absolutely atrocious. So he's not going anywhere. So I can make my peace with that. But the fact is, when you're dealing with crowds, if you've got thousands of people turning up and always supporting the same, every single game I've been to, initially the support is there. It is absolutely positive behind the team. But if it's just yet another game with just laboured shite put on the pitch, people are going to turn, and it's all well and good then saying, we can't do that. We need to. It's just that's kind of just not the way crowds work.
No, but we're talking about conditional support here, aren't we? As opposed to unconditional support. That's the thing. I mean, it's like, do you love, you two have kids, and I'm sure you love them unconditionally. Sure they do things that make you not like them occasionally. But Andy, you're on mute, mate, by the way. Do you love your club conditionally or unconditionally? And look, I'm not saying that one thing is right or one thing is wrong. This is just my view, and I make my view on this podcast because there wouldn't be much of a podcast if it didn't. But that's where I'm at with it. And I think that it's conditional and it's always on a knife edge. And we've never really tried it when it's unconditional and we've just get behind them when we don't go on the knife edge. And I think you're right, Maka. We do support the team fantastically well, but it is conditional. And I think if we're going to draw a line under lots of negative, what's the word? I don't know, practices, then let's try this one, because we've done it with players. We've targeted players over the years. Oldham fans I think we've got a history of making our minds up about things and people very, very quickly, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They go off to another club and do really well. Not in every case, obviously, particularly not if they're French, but there's. I just think that we're at a time in our history where we have to address all these things. And so let's address them. Let's talk about them. Ultimately, if Unsworth doesn't win games, he will be gone in the long, in the short, medium to long term. At some point, his tenure will be up.
One of the things that I think I was chatting to Ryan Hamer about on Twitter, you interjected and we said we might save it for the pod for discussion, is to Macca's point a moment ago, like, crowds will do what crowds do. And I think the club, I think in the games, I've only been to one game this season, it was the opening game. There definitely was a positive attitude at the start of that game. It turned later in the game, but there was no seriously negative stuff because people were in shock. And I think probably Chesterfield is the only major example of it turning early, to be fair. But the kind of the part, it goes both ways. David Unsworth needs to stop setting us up to be ultra defensive, right? Because he's going to come in for flack if he does that. So he didn't yesterday. So that maybe he's going to try and address his issue. So from our perspective, is the issue that's constantly being debated here is people are flip flopping like Macca maybe, or coming down on the decision of Unsworth out now. What is the balance of the opinion across the fan base? If you sit in this group of people, you think 80% of people want him out. If you sit in this group of people, you think 1/3 of people want him out. And we don't actually know. So the point I was trying to debate with Ryan Hamer, because Ryan Hamer was the person who said, look, if I'm unhappy, where do I voice that? If you're asking me not to be negative on the terrace, okay, I'll listen to your point of view, Andy. But where do I voice my opinion then if I can't do that? If you're trying to mute me and stop me from voicing my opinion, how do I do it? I'm like, okay, that's a fair challenge, right? To try and not make the atmosphere toxic, but he needs to voice his opinion. Well, one route could be the foundation. Could be. And I'm going to accept this is imperfect, right? I've said it's imperfect. But the one route could be the foundation. The foundation have got a seat on the board. The foundation can formally represent the view of the fan base to the board of directors. They can all hear the terrace. So they all know generally what other people's feeling is. But do we know what the actual balance is? If there was a regular survey from OASF on a range of topics, so a monthly survey that talked about experiences of, you know, what's it like in the club shop? What's it like in hospitality? What's it like in the bars, in the facilities? What's the football like? Do you enjoy the football? Do you enjoy going to the games? Do you feel it's value for money? The question should not be loaded as, do you think David Unsworth should get sacked? That's not what a question should be. But there are plenty of market research questions that could talk about the products on offer, of which the entertainment is one of them. However those questions were framed, that could be a barometer for understanding what the general consensus is over the course of time. Now, it's a bit like an opinion poll, a bit like a political opinion poll, isn't it? So if you're tracking that, then the fan rep from OSF who sits on the board can share that monthly survey with the board at board meetings and say, look, this is what the current tracking is for these metrics that we're running on the supporters' feelings and opinions.
I mean that makes sense. But we represent our members primarily. We'd have to increase the membership significantly in order to do that.
Well, but if the support, so this is part of it for me, is we need the foundation to be effective, and we need lots of members in it. We need to raise money because OASF's primary reason for being is to secure the long-term future of the football club and make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands again. Now, we appear to be in what would be a good period, a fallow period of action for OASF now. So that's good.
Which is when apathy towards OASF is at its highest.
Which is what all the trusts that we interviewed told us. Their membership numbers fall when they're doing all right or they're not in trouble anymore. You only get large membership when they're in trouble. So if we want to keep large membership numbers up now, if you felt, like Ryan Hamer quite eloquently said, you cannot voice your opinion, what better way to do it than be a member of OSF and fill in the monthly survey that gets in front of the people that own and run the football club? That would be a way of keeping membership numbers high, which can be a very small amount of cost to be a member and fill in, and therefore you get the opportunity to make sure that your opinion is viewed.
It's an interesting idea. I'm not sure whether monthly would need to be monthly, but maybe quarterly would be good. Fine.
I'm not.
I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it all adds to the debate and the question of how we ensure that our football club in the future is brilliant, because that's what we want. We all want a brilliant club to support. We want a club that is brilliant in the community, does everything right, wins football matches, has a goal at challenging for whichever division it's in, and that we can all get behind and back. And it's I think I've been talking about perspective and keeping perspective. I think it's been easy to lose perspective. It's great that we're now talking about football, but we haven't got that football club yet. We're still a long way off that football club that we all want. And some of us are still invested in trying to help make that happen. And that means building a relationship with the football, with the new board, building a relationship with fans over a period of time where there's this apathy, which happens, and not panicking and, throwing shit fits when we're not getting the results that we want in the first 7 games of the season. And I think it all comes back round to this. That's why I think that people say that the manager's divisive. I don't think he is. It's the board aren't divisive. It's the fans that are divided themselves, and that's open to debate, and it's open to different points of view, but that's where I think we're at, and I think we've got to not lose sight of what do we want this club to be and how are we going to get there. And it's not all on Frank Rothwell and his family; it's on fans as well. And I think we need to have a serious conversation about that.
The thing with the rebuilding thing, I absolutely accept that. And it is a club that is in the process of being rebuilt. But I also think, part of me thinks, well, what has that actually got to do with the playing side? Because the playing side, they've actually not got really anything to do with that. That is a group of players who are on a training ground who should be getting well drilled. It sounds bad saying it that way. You know what I mean? Getting well drilled by somebody who knows exactly what they're doing, and it's kind of separate to the club. So we're going out and we're putting in these, turgid performances, and I kind of think, what has that got to do with the club being rebuilt? Because a competent manager with this group of players would be winning games. So I kind of don't see how that argument applies, because He's definitely South End are a club that in absolute turmoil. Yet they've got a tight group of players who are playing well. We're like massively on the up, but we're still not getting that bit right. And what I don't want is just another for this season to end up becoming a write-off, and it's just another year that we've lost.
I get it. No, I get that. Totally understand that point of view and understand that frustration. But not everything comes together all at once, does it? For whatever reason, and it might be that Unsworth's not the man to take us forward, and it might be that we do have to write this season off by come next season. I'm happy that we are where we are. I'm not in the league table, but I'm happy that we are where we are in terms of where the club's at. A lot of the teams that are doing well in this division have had managers with them for a long time, and they've built their squad up over years, and that does help massively. Look at Southend. I mean, you're right. What their manager's done down there is fantastic. And a lot of what the other managers do in some of the other clubs is fantastic. Look at Mark White at Dorking, where we've got them next week, and everybody's expecting us to beat them. But what they've achieved is amazing, and it's all built around pretty much around one person and the atmosphere and the feelings that people have for him and the personalities that he's pulled together, as well as the playing talent. But that didn't happen overnight either. For me, I understand what you're saying, but I accept that there might be a little bit of patience required in order to get to where we need to get to. That's literally been what I've been trying to say since. And then I get all. I mean, look, I've been George Harrison this week. I've been James Blunt this week. I've been a Simpsons character. I've been everything, right? I've been sang about on trains and buses and all this kind of stuff. I can take a joke and I can take and that's all fine. And I put myself out there and I'm going to get a bit of stick. That's absolutely fine. I actually think it's great that there's people out there, that are being creative with things rather than just going boo, sack him. You know what I mean? But so I'm all up for that. But all I've really said is that we need a little bit of patience in order to get to where we need to get to, and I'm going to stand by that. And I stand by the fact that there are some very unsavoury characters in our fan base. I ruffled a few feathers last week, and that's great because they've all shown themselves to be, exactly what I said they were. And we said this about Abdallah. You can't address problems until you're prepared to look yourself in the eye, in the mirror, and say, right, this is where the issues are. This club is not perfect. There are still issues. There are still things that we need to address. It might be that the manager is one of them at some point in the future. I'm saying that our attitude as fans in terms of what our expectations are, maybe we could just sort of just not be quite so chomping on the bit for everything to be perfect right now.
I'll tell you what I'm chomping on a bit for, though. I'm chomping on a bit for Mac.
Go on, let Macca respond to that before we do that. Go on, because he wanted to say something there.
Well, it's not. I don't think people are chomping at the bit for things to be perfect. I think, look, no one's happy with our league position, but even if we were kind of like 10th, 9th, 10th, outside the playoffs.
Macca, that would not be because everyone we should be winning the league. We should be up there.
No. What I was going to say there is, if that's where we were, and you could actually see the performances just improving. I mean, I don't know where we are with stats, but more balls going into the box.
Going into the goal.
Seeing these little triangles in each game, there's that incremental thing. Then you'd say, right, okay, fair enough. We can see where this is going. But the fact is, we're still not getting that. What we're getting is individual players who put in good performances, but as a unit, it's still disorganized, ill-disciplined. And it's like, what are we actually waiting for? What are the signs here that you can point at and say, look, concentrate on there. You can see what's going on. This is going to get better because I can't see it. So I think
some fans look at it from that point of view. Some fans look. I mean, you look at the Chesterfield game. I don't think you could say we were unorganised against Chesterfield, for example. So, I think it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, if we had 7 games to go and we were 5 points off the playoffs, you'd be like, we're well in this, right? We've played 7 games and we're 5 games off the playoffs, right? So we've got 39 games to go and we're 5 points off the playoffs. So there is plenty of time, right, to turn this around and make the adjustments and get certain players back fit and blah, 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 blah. If at Christmas time, we're 20 points off the playoffs, it's a different story, isn't it? And then people will say, well, we should have done this earlier. We should have done that earlier. There's no perfect scenario. There's no perfect outcome here. There's always going to be some kind of trade-off. It's not as easy and straightforward as to just say sack him. The best scenario for everybody, every single person involved in the club, is that it works under Unsworth. That's the best outcome.
Well, I am dying to eat humble pie. I'm absolutely dying. I want it hooked up intravenously.
Yeah. But humble pie can only be eaten with a bit of time, innit? So
it is.
Look, I could turn out to be. I can't really be wrong because I'm saying asking for patience. I'm not saying Unsworth is the man. That's up to Unsworth to prove, not up to me to prove. So I'm just going to wait to see whether he does or he doesn't. If he doesn't prove out to be the man, then they'll have to bring somebody else in. But with the person that they bring in, he's going to have to deliver. Otherwise, the same thing will happen to them. And my point really about the way that we respond to this is, if the next man comes in and doesn't deliver within the first X amount of games that his level of expectation is amongst the fan base, does the same thing happen to that person? And do we keep going round and round in circles? That's really the kind of thing that I'm trying to sort of address amongst those who react, because not everybody reacts the same way, but some people I feel are just being a bit over sort of zealous in the way that they're reacting. But look, it's each to their own, innit? And Unsworth, if you're listening, which you're not, but please, can we fucking start winning some games of football? Because we all really, really want that to happen, first and foremost. Right, go on, Andy.
Come on, Latic's mind. You got plenty of music.
No.
Make sure it's not on loop.
This is the one bit I've been dreading. I used to think my Oldham knowledge was good. Last few weeks, I don't think I've got any right.
Well, you might get
Just make them easy.
You might get a good batch. Good luck.
Latic signed 2 players from Watford in 1989-90. Rick Oldham was one. Who was the other?
Pass.
Mike Fondop scored a hat-trick at Dorking last season. Peter Clark and who were the other goal scorers?
Pass.
Who scored Latics consolation in the 7-1 home defeat to Cardiff?
Oh, nah, pass.
Who scored the winner for Latics versus Millwall on the opening day of 2008-2009?
The opening goal.
Yeah, who scored the winner for Latics versus Millwall on the opening game of the season?
Chris
08-09.
Taylor.
Correct.
Yes.
Who was Latics chairman before Ian stopped?
Ken Bates.
Harry Wild. Who scored Latics winner on our last visit to Scotland in 2021?
No, pass. Can't remember.
Which former Latics manager had a long spell as boss of Hyde United?
Oh, Gary Kelly.
Darren Kelly, I'll give it you.
Oh, yeah.
Which former Latics manager has managed Bristol City, Sunderland, and Hibernian?
Lee Johnson.
Correct. Who missed? I've started, so I'll finish. Who missed a penalty for Fulham in our famous FA Cup victory in 2019?
Mitrovic, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
You did well in the end there. You did well in the end there. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 correct in the end.
Hang on.
What?
Gary Kelly, Darren Kelly.
Oh, but I meant Darren Kelly.
Yeah, well, look, listen, I'm sorry, but I mean, if come on,
You're not having it.
I mean, it's the two.
Give it.
I mean, it's the wrong answer, isn't it? I mean, it's the wrong.
All right.
Answer.
So I was feeling sorry for him because he got a few passes, but then he actually came good. So we'll take it.
I know
off.
exactly. So you got to stick with it right or wrong. You know?
Right, okay.
Sorry, Maka.
Sorry about that, Maka. Passes. Latics signed 2 players from Watford in 89-90. Rick Oldham was one. Do you know the other one, Matt?
No, I was racking my brains. I can't think. No.
Neil Redfern. Who scored the goal that I didn't list out from Dorking last year, Matt?
Was it Alex Reid?
It was Ellis Chapman.
Oh, yeah.
Who scored Latics consolation in the 7-1 home defeat to Cardiff? That was Stuart Barmer.
Oh, Christ, I'd never.
Who scored Latics winner our last visit to Scotland?
Keeler Dunn.
Keeler Dunn, yeah.
Was it Keeler Dunn?
Yeah. Very good. Not bad effort. 3. You'll be in the middle of the pack.
I'll take, like I said, there's some weeks I don't get any, so I'll take 3 all day long.
Yeah, good stuff. So, Dorking, that's what you mentioned. Dorking there, Andy.
Yeah,
that's our game on next Saturday. Very, very kindly, by the way, there is a fan a Latics fan, who has bought a hospitality package, and he's sharing it amongst some Dorking fans, and he's given 3 seats on the table to the podcast by way of appreciation for the podcast. So you literally doffed your cap then, Andy, to Nick who's done that. Oh, it's very, very kind, and we thank you very, very much for that. So we're going to be not going to be in the Rochdale Road end, we're going to be in the North Stand, watching it from a slightly different perspective ahead of next week's podcast. 3 points at home to Dorking Wanderers talking about expectations, it absolutely has to be.
It has to be a win. I'm not accepting a draw. Don't care. If you're not beating Dorking Wanderers at home, even if it is only the 8th game of the season, then we are in real trouble.
Well, if you look at our next 4 home games now, so we've got Dorking, York, Oxford City, Maidenhead United, Dagenham and Redbridge, Altrincham. He has to win. He has to win the vast majority, if not all of them.
Absolutely.
I'll accept a point away from home, like a point away from home anywhere. So other than this is the fine margins bit you can argue, Matt. Sometimes when you look at it, is other than Southend, which Mac and I are still in shock about. We've drawn our other 3 away games. Had we won our home games, then that that wouldn't necessarily have been a particularly bad start. It's because
I mean, look, draws away from home are great, like ideally against good teams. But I'd like us to go to Maidstone and Dagenham and Redbridge and win games like away from home. We should that should be that should be the expectation. Absolutely. Look, I'm not like giving David Unsworth a free pass for the whole season to take mediocre results. This is a run of games now that he needs to start picking up results. There's no question about it. They've got those fine margins, they've got to start turning into results, and that means keeping 10 players on the pitch, not picking up stupid bookings for stupid things like dissent and kicking the ball away. That comes from the captain, because Liam Hogan's been a he's had a few bookings for mouthing off and stuff. So I agree with you, Maka, what you're saying about laughing about stuff like that. When it comes down to in the changing rooms and on the training pitch and fines and all that kind of stuff, now they've got to sort that out. We can't afford to have 3 players sent off in the first 7 games. It's poor.
Especially because Shelton's first booking was for kicking the ball away, wasn't it? Which is what Fondop got his one
exactly.
For. So how has that happened? Like in the next game?
The next game. I know it's stupid, and but that's what I'm saying. Players are accountable. Managers are accountable. They're the ones where the attitude on the terraces and all that. The response from the fans will no doubt improve if the players and the managers start getting results. And so let's hand it over to them. They've won 1 in 7. It's over to you, boys. Like
what would you say? Honestly, where do you think you'll be if in the next 7 games we've just got 1 win?
If we've got 1 win out of the next 7 games, then something is seriously wrong. And like I've said all season, the board will be accountable for the decisions that they have to make, and it'll be on them. Because no matter how much we boo and we do this and we do that, ultimately it's on them to make the decision, innit? I mean, I don't think that I've seen and I've heard and a conversation with people saying, look, well, I'm not going now because I don't like the football and all that kind of stuff, or I don't like Unsworth, so I'm not going. I don't see how that is productive or how it makes a difference. I'm going to keep going to the games and backing the club, and we're on the right path, and think, considering where we were to where we are now, things are going in the right direction. So let's get behind it all. But ultimately, in football, if you don't win your football matches, your job's on the line, innit? And we need to start seeing the results. So good luck to Mr. Unsworth and the lads next week against Dorking, and let's all hope that we are in for a good September, because August was shite. Maka, thanks for joining us, mate.
No probs. Thanks for having me.
Sorry we didn't get to talk about your biceps. Thank you for listening to the Boundary Park Alert System, a QPod production hosted and produced weekly by Matt Dean, Andy Halliwell and Dave Bradley. QPod is Oldham's only dedicated podcast production company, and if you'd like to learn more about how podcasting can help take your brand to the next level, visit kupod.co.uk. A huge thank you goes to all those people who subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. We really appreciate you all. Please visit oafcpodcast.co.uk and click Be a Supporter, or find the link in the show notes if you'd like to help us fund the show. It's only $2.99 per month to subscribe, but if you'd rather make a one-off donation, please visit buymeacoffee.com/OAFC podcast or click the link on our website. Don't miss the Latics Football Phone-In every Wednesday live from 8:30pm. Please visit youtube.com/@OAFC podcast and do hit subscribe while you are there. You can also follow and interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok @OAFC podcast. Big thanks go to Eileen Finnegan for writing our excellent weekly blog, which we encourage you to read on our website every Saturday morning, and also to Paul Prendergast for providing us with all the Latics Mind questions. The title music for the show is by Manchester DJ and producer Starion, and for more information visit bandcamp.com/Red Laser Records. If you'd like to be a guest or contribute to the show, we would love to hear from you. Until then, see you next time.